In this video, I am going to provide you with 5 easy ways to create a sober network. Keep in mind that the term easy is subjective, and what I find easy might not come easy to you. I strive to use tips that are universally accessible. I did my best. I'm actually really surprised that I haven't made a video about this particular topic yet, considering how important my sober network is to me. But better late than never, right? Whether you're in early sobriety, long-term sobriety, or just curious about sobriety, this video is for you, and hopefully will help you get started on creating a sober network or continuing to build the sober network that you currently have. So here's the rundown. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience in building a sober network. Then I'm going to get into the scientific research behind why a sober network is so important. Then finally, as the title suggests, I will give you 5 easy ways to create a sober network. So make sure to stay tuned until the very end, or else. Hello everyone, I am Allie K. Campbell. This is my YouTube channel. It is dedicated to getting real, having fun, and living sober. Every Wednesday, I upload a new sobriety tip that you can add to your sobriety toolbox, which is what you're watching right now. If you would like a new tip each week, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. There's a whole lot of other sobriety-related content I do on here, but these Wednesday tips are the most regular. And before I dive into everything that you need to know about creating a sober network, I want to shout out my patrons and give them a big thank you for helping me make these videos possible. So thank you so much, Anna, Beth, Callie, Chris, Emily, Lauren, Pam, Rachel, Samantha, and Tess. You guys are rock stars and I love you forever. If you're interested in becoming a patron, you can go ahead and click the link in the description of this video and you can find out all the different perks that come along with each tier as well. Okay, let's get to the show. So before getting sober, I only knew one sober person, and that was the person I was dating at the time. Most of the people I hung around, including my friends and family, were either social drinkers / drug users or like straight up had a substance abuse issue that they probably weren't even aware of. Basically, I had no reference point for a sober person until I decided to get sober myself and ended up in a 12-step program. And upon meeting people in a 12-step setting, at first it did feel kind of forced and weird, but I think that had more to do with the fact that I just was so unfamiliar with socializing sober. The more that I leaned into those relationships and really built those friendships, the more I met amazing people who, if it weren't for them, my sobriety probably wouldn't be where it's at today. Meeting this first group of sober people who were like super committed to sobriety, also helped me to understand that there are other young people, although they were kind of hard to find, and that sobriety didn't have to be boring. Like, we could have fun, we could go out and do things. Getting high and drunk wasn't everything. So that was like a really big part of enjoying early sobriety for me, was being able to build those connections. So there's definitely upsides to doing the traditional 12-step path when it comes to building a network, because there's like fellowship built into that program or those programs, and I'll actually get a little bit more into that later on in the episode. So after a little bit of sober time under my belt, I started finding interest in reading Quit Lit, which is our cute little way in the sober community of talking about books that have a sobriety theme, whether it's a memoir by somebody who's gotten sober or is in recovery, or like a self-help book or a self-development book, whatever it may be. And this might sound weird, but like, although these authors and these people who were like brought up in the books had no idea I even existed, they actually became part of my sober network. Granted, it was like a one-way street, but I started engaging with their content, their work, their creations online and through their books in a way that felt like I knew them. And when things got tough, if I didn't have somebody else to go to, I was able to think back to, oh, well, Tommy Rosen said in Recovery 2.0, yada, 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 which is a great book, by the way. Totally highly suggest that one. It kind of changed my entire recovery, to be honest. I'll link that book in the description of this video as well. And after even more sober time under my belt, and I highly suggest you don't wait as long as I did to do this, I found the world of digital recovery Instagram, recovery TikTok. It's a thing. Sober Facebook, I don't know, virtual meetings, and obviously this ramped up even more during the pandemic, but I started really exploring it way before COVID-19 was even a thing. This has by far been the part of my sober network that has seen the most growth and has grown the most rapidly, which makes sense because it's all virtual, right? So it's instant. And while it's super important to me and like a huge part of my network, it still doesn't quite match up to like having a face-to-face conversation with somebody, but still an indispensable part of my sobriety, my recovery. I love the people that I've met online, and it would be so cool to like eventually be able to meet them in person one day. The essence of my network now is a combination of all these things, except obviously the first one, because I don't talk to my exes because I'm too emotionally sober for that. You should be too, but that's probably a topic for another episode. But now that you have a better understanding about my history with building a sober network, let's talk about what the science says about the importance of doing this. In the first study I found, which has a very, very long title, it's called Decomposing the Relationships Between Pre-Treatment Social Network Characteristics and Alcohol Treatment Outcome. Wow. Researchers found that people who had a network full of others who were abstaining from alcohol, as well as individuals who identified as recovering alcoholics, had better treatment outcomes 3 years down the line versus those who did not. And another study that was done over a 16-year period, which I'm pretty sure is like rather unheard of. That's like a very long time to study a group of people, so it's at least a little bit of an authority, I would think. They set out to find out things that were contributing to relapse. And similar to the first study, they found social support was a crucial factor, whether or not somebody relapsed and in establishing abstinence. The third article I found, I have to mention, is not peer-reviewed. The other two are. This one was not. However, it was created from a trauma-informed lens and by someone with experience in the substance abuse industry. Not to mention, she used a bunch of high-quality sources to back up her views, so I do find it to be a legitimate source. In it, Hella Lust, I'm not really sure how to pronounce her name, she basically talks about how healing and resilience are often products of social connection. So healing is another word for recovery. Resilience is arguably something that recovery requires. Connection makes sense to me. In her article, she talks about how spending time with people who have similar values and similar interests as you can help to forge trusted relationships, which, okay, no-brainer. She goes on to mention that this kind of thing can happen at a club. I mean, I guess technically a club, but I mean like a racquetball club or like a Pokemon club, not like a nightclub. But I mean, whatever. It would still technically work, assuming that nobody was doing drugs. We're talking about sobriety here. Place of worship, a church, a sporting activity, or even, and she mentions this, virtual spaces. So it doesn't even matter what the particular group is like bonding over and creating relationships over, it still has the potential to bring on healing and resiliency in the members of the group, assuming the thing that these people are engaging in isn't, outwardly harmful to themselves or others. I also chose to incorporate this article, which will be linked in the description of the video along with the other two, because she actually does not mention abstinence. And of course, most of the focus out there in other studies is about abstinence, which is perfectly fine. However, if we're going to be inclusive of everybody who's on like the recovery spectrum or the sobriety spectrum, to include people who are perhaps experimenting with harm reduction techniques, or people who consider themselves to be sober curious but still, do drink every now and then or possibly still use drugs. This article, I think, works for those people too, and not just people whose goal is abstinence. Assuming that you have a group of people whose common goal is to explore the sober curious realm, well, that would work just as well as a group of people who are all as a unit exploring abstinence. On this channel, we don't leave anyone out, or we try very hard not to. If I've left anyone out, please let me know. You can check out all of those sources and kind of dig deeper into them. But what I want to do is get to the 5 easy ways that you can build a sober network. Number 1 is connect with the people in your life that you already know are sober. It's Murphy's Law. The easiest solution is the correct one. I think that's Murphy's Law. Or is it Occam's razor? Almost everyone has like an uncle or a cousin or like a friend or somebody who is in sobriety or recovery. And if you feel comfortable with this person, or you don't have a negative history with them by any means, consider reaching out to them. It's a great first step because not only does this person have shared experience with you in terms of wanting to get sober or wanting to stay sober or explore sobriety, but they also may have shared lived experience in terms of if you guys grew up in the same family dynamic, if you guys grew up in the same town or went to the same college, or perhaps you had similar friend groups. It's just an added level of comfort that you might not have necessarily with a stranger. I mean, like, I know for me, connecting with people who I used to party with and get messed up with, who had then gotten sober, has just been like a bittersweet experience for me. And it hits different than connecting with strangers. I mean, that's great too. And I've built amazing relationships with other sober people I didn't know prior, but like coming face to face with somebody who we both used to use together and then we both got sober, like it's just, I don't know, it gives me chills, honestly. Look at this. My hairs are standing up and shit. Number 2, consider your furry friends. Don't leave. Wait, guys. Yes, I'm talking about pets. Don't click out of the video yet. Petra, I love you. Yes, I'm talking about pets. Hear me out for a second, okay? I'm serious, y'all. Not everyone has like unlimited access to people, whether it be online or in real life. Not everyone is even like emotionally there yet to like want to connect with other humans. So sometimes animals are just safer, an easier comfort zone. At the very least, they're a good start. And the facts are that based on studies I looked at for this episode, pets actually have a profound effect on our emotional well-being and our happiness. 2 things that are great for sobriety. No, your cats probably can't relate to your 3-day binge or your 3-day bender, but they can listen non-judgmentally and they can be there for you as you process the emotions of it. Number 3, I brought this up earlier, go to the internet, my friends. You're already halfway here. Well, you're already fully here. Whichever sobriety path you're on, I feel confident that there is a group out there just waiting for you with open virtual arms. Like try YouTube, try Instagram, all the social media platforms, like type in your little keywords that help you identify and see what you can find. It might take a little exploration, but it's worth it. Google online recovery meetings too. There are so many different ones out there for us to choose from. If you commit to finding it, you will find it. Number 4 is to try a 12-step meeting. Whereas there aren't a ton of recovery programs out there, like I mentioned, whether that means online or in real life, 12-step meetings are by far the largest and the most accessible. One of the very few out there who are holding a number of in real life meetings right now, given COVID-19, although I'd probably still caution against that for a little while. If you're somebody who identifies as queer or BIPOC, I highly suggest that you seek out affinity groups in 12-step programs, because despite how wonderful these meetings can be, these fellowships can be, there can be a level of trauma there, or at the very least discomfort in being in a room of people who don't look like you or who you feel like you really can't connect with. But I mean, if you're looking for straight white people, then they got plenty of that. Number 5 is get a therapist. I can't guarantee that your therapist will be sober, but I can almost guarantee that they'll be sober during your therapy sessions. And at the very least, like try and find somebody who has experience in helping people with substance abuse and recovery. The obvious barrier here is healthcare and cost. Unfortunately, it is a luxury in the States to get access to proper mental health care. This is kind of what I was talking about when I said easy is a subjective term. Again, this one might take a little bit of digging. More and more recently, resources are cropping up, making healthcare more accessible to people who can't necessarily afford it. Do a little research into what you can find. Think outside the box. When it comes to cost, can you do a payment plan? Is there anyone who's offering free sessions for people in certain demographics? And if you need any help finding things like that, reach out to me and I would be happy to like help you look to the best of my ability. Having a therapist, I think, has been really, really important in my sober journey because it just gives me an unbiased opinion and a non-judgmental person to go to who I can let it all out on and really feel safe. Okay guys, that is it. I hope you found some value in this video. If you'd like to drop a comment about how you've built your sober network or maybe some of the struggles that you've faced while trying to build a sober network, it won't be just helpful to me, but it'll also be helpful to anybody who else might be reading the comments. If you've stuck around for this long, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel so I can keep creating sobriety content for you to get regularly. And with that, it's been real, it's been fun, and it's been real fun. Bye guys.